Ladies and gentlemen, I hate to say it, but the ongoing situation with our Supreme Court is so much worse than any of us thought. You see, just yesterday afternoon, Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson just publicly defended the constitutionality of sexually explicit LGBTQ literature being placed inside of elementary school classrooms. You heard that right. The highest court in the country now has a sitting justice actively defending sexually profane content in public schools. And her argument, well, it's about as insulting to your intelligence as you would expect. You see, her defense of this sort of profane, sexually explicit literature existing in elementary school classrooms is built on this entirely ridiculous and disingenuous notion that just because the books are technically in the classroom doesn't mean that children are actually going to read them. But you know what? Why don't you guys just take a listen to what Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson had to say for herself?
We don't at this moment, based on the record you've provided, know that these books aren't just sitting on the shelves. And you've said that if that's the case, that's not going to be enough.
I disagree, Your Honor. The record is undisputed, and I, again, will refer you to the district court transcript at 63, where counsel
So you're
said
saying the Fourth Circuit is wrong when it says, quote, we don't have any information about how any teacher or school employee has actually used any of the books.
The Court of Appeals did not dispute that some of the books have to be used, and we have all of the teachers' instructions that the board's not disputed.
I understand that, but the Fourth Circuit made a ruling that we don't know, quote, what any child has been taught in conjunction with their use. So are you saying that you do have affidavits and information about teachers in the classroom and what they've taught children of different ages about these books?
Yes, we do. All of our clients have, in their declarations, they describe which books are going to be read to their children.
Were the clients in the classroom?
They were not in the classroom, but they know. And again, we don't have to wait until the injury has happened to get relief. The point of a preliminary injunction is that we can, when the injury is imminent, we can seek relief.
All right,
to
let me
stop
ask
it from
you
happening
another.
before our children's innocence is destroyed.
Let me ask you another series of questions.
Like I said, folks, Supreme Court Justice Jackson is smug, condescending, and disingenuous. Absolutely repulsive behavior. But so just to recap, her legal reasoning is that even if the books are sitting there in the classrooms, explicit, graphic, and completely inappropriate for children, it's apparently not a big deal because the kids might not be reading them. That's like saying it's fine to store drugs in a daycare center because the toddlers probably won't get into them. Folks, this is a perfect example of what we are dealing with right now. A justice so ideologically committed to the progressive cult that she's willing to abandon any pretense of logic or common sense. She knows these books are obscene. She knows they're wildly inappropriate for children, but rather than admitting that fact, she moves the goalpost saying, well, technically, they're just in the classroom and maybe the kids aren't even going to be reading them. Now, for the last several years, American parents across the country have been sounding the alarm, not just about the books, but about the blatant violation of their parental rights. Public schools have been denying opt-outs from LGBTQ curricula, refusing to inform parents about their lesson content, and actively undermining the rights of moms and dads to direct the moral upbringing of their children in their place. And so what is Justice Jackson's response to this tidal wave of totally justified parental concern? Well, take a look at this.
The parent can choose to put their kid elsewhere. You don't have to send your kid to public school. I'm struggling to see how it burdens a parent's religious exercise if the school teaches something that the parent disagrees with. You have a choice. You can homeschool them.
Folks, I'm just going to come out and say it. Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Jackson hates you, and she hates this country. And by the way, keep this in mind. In the past, Supreme Court Justice Jackson has publicly said that voter ID laws are racist and discriminatory because they're just too burdensome for minorities to handle. But if parents don't want their 8-year-olds being exposed to sexually explicit LGBTQ propaganda in math class, then they should just fork over thousands of dollars to send their kids to a private school. You see the absolutely insane double standard, right? The very same people who say that asking for voter ID is burdensome racist economic discrimination are now telling working class parents to abandon the public schools that they themselves fund with their tax dollars and instead start teaching their kids full time from their own living room. Folks, this is what progressivism really looks like: arrogant, dismissive, and completely detached from reality. And you know what? Here's the truth. Justice Jackson's appointment, like so many of Joe Biden's other diversity hires, wasn't about competence. No, it was about quotas, and it shows. Because not only is she defending sexually explicit content in elementary schools, not only is she mocking and downplaying the concerns of American parents, but she also can't even define the word woman. And if you don't believe me, take a look at this.
Can you provide a definition for the word woman?
Can I provide a definition? No,
Yeah,
I can't.
you can't?
Not in
Okay.
this context.
So you
I'm not a
believe the meaning
biologist.
of
Ladies and gentlemen, what am I even supposed to say about this? This is a sitting Supreme Court justice tasked with interpreting law at the highest level in the country who doesn't feel comfortable defining the word woman, but she feels totally confident dismissing the legitimate concerns of millions of parents across the country. I'll tell you what, folks, the America First movement doesn't play games like this. We believe that parents have rights. We believe that children deserve to be protected from radical ideological LGBTQ indoctrination, and we believe that taxpayer-funded institutions should answer to the people who fund them, not a bunch of unelected, leftist, bureaucratic, activist judges. Let's make something very clear. Expecting parents to uproot their lives, pay thousands of dollars in tuition for private schools, or quit their jobs to homeschool just to escape radical propaganda in their local school system is not a solution, it's a surrender, and that is what the radical left wants. They want public schools to be ideological factories, pumping out progressive foot soldiers, and if you don't like it, well, you can just leave. But we're not going to leave. We are going to take our schools back. And you know what? The majority of Americans are right here with us. They've had it with the sexually explicit books in our elementary schools. They've had it with the radical gender theory, and they've definitely had it with elitist judges like Jackson who think the only solution is to flee the system rather than fix it. Because as we all know, in a sane country, in a moral country, sexually explicit material does not belong anywhere near a child, especially in our public schools. And any adult who says otherwise has absolutely no business sitting on the United States Supreme Court. So I'll tell you what, folks, we have got to keep pushing back against all of this radical progressive ideology because that is what it's going to take to put America first. Now, folks, before we wrap up with today's video, I want to say real quick that I've actually gone ahead and made a community Facebook page where I'll be posting additional news and updates as it relates to all of this. So if you guys use Facebook, check out the pinned comment down below and give that page a follow. But everyone, that is going to be a wrap for today's video, so please go down below and drop a comment. Let me know what you think about all of this. Please like the video while you're down there. As I said earlier, please consider subscribing to the channel because it really does help a ton with my daily struggle here on YouTube. Thank you all very much for tuning in today, and of course, as always, stay safe.